So, as 2021 comes to an end, and as we continue to go into the 2020s, I figure it's an appropriate time to look back at some of the best comic book movie battles of the previous decade. And I figure I do the top 5 because 5's a pretty easy number, and it's easy and narrowed down. So, these are the top 5 best comic book movies of the past decade. Let's get into it. So, coming in at number 5, the Doomsday Climax in Batman vs. Superman. Now, this is one of those fights where there's so much destruction and debris everywhere in a city, where there's so much chaos and action going on. It's a very important fight for Superman because this is kind of like his last before being resurrected. This is his sacrifice and his death leaving a big impact to the world. And having Wonder Woman and Batman alongside that fight against this killing machine is just truly cool to see. Although Batman doesn't really do a whole lot, he mostly dodges more from Doomsday's attacks and tries to blast Doomsday with kryptonite bullets. He still partakes and helps do his part in taking down the monster. Diana puts up a good fight and definitely gives the Doomsday monster a run for his money. Superman given the sacrifice with the kryptonite spear and leading up to the death of Superman, a very important moment in the comics. This is just, a very important moment in the DCEU moment. Although he would be resurrected not too long after, it's still a cool homage to the 90s death of Superman. And also another thing I like about this climax is the way that when Doomsday first comes out of the Kryptonian spaceship and he sees the Superman statue posing, I like the way that Doomsday looks at the statue as if Zod's consciousness was somehow still inside of Doomsday, because keep in mind the monster was made of Lex's and Zod's DNA, so it almost Doomsday looked at the statue in awe and as if there was some consciousness left in Zod, in the Doomsday monster. It's just, it practically felt like another match between Superman and Zod in that kind of way. But of course, it was really more about Doomsday because, that's the Doomsday monster and it looked nothing like Zod. But overall, definitely a cool fight. I wish it could have lasted a little bit longer, and Superman's death was kind of quick, especially making his second appearance in the DCEU, so kind of a rush death, but still a cool battle and a cool moment nonetheless. So next up, Batman vs. Superman. Now, when you hear two iconic characters who practically started comic books, who were pretty much, the original comic book characters in the late 30s and early 40s, you think of a legendary tale and battle between two champions and warriors going at it. And Zack Snyder definitely did a good job delivering that, because Batman had Superman in his defeat, because Batman came prepared, not just with the training, but with the kryptonite spear, his suit, his gadgets, the kryptonite bullets. Batman knew what he was going into, and so he could not go into this fight going blind. So Superman didn't realize in this movie he was vulnerable to the kryptonite until kind of after. I don't think, if I recall, Supes even knew what kryptonite was in that movie until he found out about it himself, being exposed to the kryptonite gas. But anyways, what also makes this fight cool is how it gives off Dark Knight Returns vibes. How there's a lot of cool shots that reference to the comic books, and how Batman and Superman view each other. Why Batman? We know why Batman needed to fight Superman, just based off the trailers alone. But we didn't really know why until Superman had to fight Batman. Until kind of going later on into the movie, but it also goes a bit further deep in the director's cut of that movie. But that was also a pretty cool fight between two original comic book characters, and Zack Snyder definitely delivered the hype up to it. So next up on the list is going to be Iron Man and Captain America in Civil War. Now, what I liked about this rivalry was how this quarrel has been leading up since the first Avengers movie in the early decade. These two have had bad blood since they first met. Two different heroes with, how they view the world and how they view each other. Tony is more, everything's more of a joke and a game to him, while Steve is more, aware of consequences and wants to take the job seriously and wants to get it done. He's got orders he has to take because, that he's a soldier and that's what soldiers do. And it's a build-up that's led to, from the first movie, Avengers movie, the second Avengers movie, and it all comes together in this when it comes to the Sokovia records and whether or not the Avengers should be property of the US government, whether they should work with the government or they should act on their own, if they should listen to some higher authority. While the characters shared different sides and opinions on it, it's definitely led to an emotional roller coaster of co-workers and allies fighting each other. And not only with, these two characters, fighting each other, being co-workers and allies, but with the fact that Tony's parents were killed because of Winter Soldier, a close friend of Cap, and the fact that even during the fight, Tony still viewed Steve as a friend. It was, it almost kind of hit me in the heart in a way, because it pains Tony that he has to fight Captain America, because in a way he still respects him despite how they treat each other and view each other. And when at the end when Tony was pretty much beaten and laying on the floor, and how he thought Steve didn't deserve the shield, and it just really hurt, because it was just a big breakup that you just witnessed on screen, and you couldn't really do anything about it to stop it or try to make it better. And even at the end, at the end of the film when Steve delivered the flip phone to Tony, saying that, even despite their differences, Steve's always going to be there to help Tony, which, I find it to be like a mutual civil respect between the two. And yeah, overall for that battle, it was kind of like hard to see like two good people who have their own who had different views and opinions just go at it with each other. But it was cool at the same time because it's all been leading up since the first Avengers movie. So, coming in at number 2 is the Hulk versus Hulkbuster fight. Now, this was another fight which was also pretty destructive and had a lot of debris everywhere. This was a fight where two giants were going at each other and, they were sending each other flying over the city, fists were being delivered left and right. It was just truly a cool fight to see overall. And when you get two giants to fight in a big populated city, it's always cool to see the kind of like the mess and the awe of the fighting going on, and seeing these characters being attacked and such. So yeah, overall definitely a very cool fight with definitely a cool lot of cool that being a cool moment in the movie. And finally, coming in at number 1, I'm sure this won't be as a surprise, but I'll put it in here anyway. The Endgame Climax. The hype that has been built up since 2008, which has been going on, the hype has been going on for a decade, has led to that very moment of all the heroes from past movies coming into one battlefield to face a common foe, with the entire universe at stake. It's win or go home for these guys. And, even with Tony, Thor, and Cap going up against Thanos before all the heroes came back together, it was also pretty cool to see. Seeing Captain America wield Thor's hammer and seeing, Cap putting up a good fight and refusing to back down, and the fact that Cap was ready to take on Thanos' whole army by himself before all the heroes who vanished came back. And most importantly, Iron Man's sacrifice when it all came down to that moment. Tony did not hesitate, because if you notice, Tony was willing to sacrifice himself at pretty much the end of every Avengers movie. He knew what he was getting himself into, and he delivered that iconic Iron Man line. It was also an emotional moment for me. I definitely cried seeing Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s last performance. But it was definitely a good fight to go out on. And Robert Downey Jr. did an excellent job on his last time as Tony Stark. But yeah, that's about it overall. I'm looking forward to some more legendary battles in this decade, and if anything, I'm sure they'll be as amazing, if not better, than the previous decade. Until next time.